Hi weaving friends, it's coming up to that wonderful time of year, and so I thought it was a very appropriate time for a really fun little project of some Christmas trees. Now, if you've been watching my channel for some time, you may have seen the winter trees that I've done previously. These are a little bit similar to the winter trees in ways, but I've also added extra things like a pot. They have the real Christmas tree shape and colors with the little star on top and everything. And for the next row of trees, we might even decorate our trees. So that's something you can look forward to as well. Now, before I get stuck into the tutorial, I want to let you know about where you can find more information on this project. You will find it in the link that is below to my blog. And the reason that I'm putting it all there instead of trying to write out all the instructions underneath this video, it's just that it gets very messy, it gets very confusing. But if I put the information on my blog, I can lay it out for you just the way I want, and I can make you a lovely little PDF, which I know is going to help so many of you to be able to do this. So make sure that you have a look underneath, click on more if you can't see anything, and then you'll be able to go to the blog post. You'll find out all of the information, the yarns that I've used, the set that I've used, the number of ends, the other types of yarns, and all of the weaving instructions. Okay, I'm ready to get started, but there is one more thing. I have to address the elephant in the room. If you haven't figured it out already, or if you haven't been wondering what on earth that is, this was my attempt at making a Santa Claus, and he looked really great when I designed him on some graph paper. In fact, he looked so sweet and so cute. I thought this is going to be fantastic. But he didn't translate to the looms so well. One of the problems was that I needed to start colors and end colors. Some of the colors got kind of buried among other colors, and it just ended up quite messy. Now, I haven't seen the back of this piece, and I don't even want to. It feels like such a mess back there. Like, there are so many ends. I know it looks like a simple thing, and I actually thought it was going to be fairly simple. But after doing this little guy, I decided to instead teach you how to make some Christmas trees, both for your sanity and mine. I did show my husband this little Santa guy at one point, and he said, "He looks evil." And I had to agree. So we have now dubbed him the Evil Santa. Now, I could have covered him up, or I could have rolled on the warp so that you didn't see him at all. But I wanted you to see that I'm just like you, trying things, seeing what works, and sort of discarding what doesn't work. And also, it's really important to be able to have a laugh at yourself. If things don't work out, it's a bit frustrating, but you know, now I've got this little evil Santa guy to look back on and have a chuckle at. So anyway, aside from Evil Santa, let's start weaving some cute little Christmas trees. I'm actually happy with the Christmas trees, and I don't think that they look even the slightest bit evil. So how I started mine out is with a little border of some white yarn running across top and bottom. So I'm not going to pop in another row of white yarn here. I'm just going to start my trees because I didn't want to have that double line of white. But if you wanted to have that border, you could start with a white line, and then you do a few more picks. I did 4 or 5 picks of my blue before I launched into my actual pattern. Now with the pickup stick, I'll point this out because I've already experienced this from doing these trees myself beforehand, that this pickup stick, you can see it just reaches beyond the width of my warp, which you think would be okay, but I did find it a little bit frustrating when I was doing my pickup and I put my stick on edge and it would just keep falling down and slipping out of place. So this time I've brought in a little bit of a bigger stick. One that was in between these two sizes would be fantastic, but I don't have it, so I'm just going to go with the big one. At least then I know it's not going to come out of place. Now, if you've seen any of my other pickup videos, I call them my brand new videos because that was where I first became interested in this technique of picking up the pattern in front of the heddle, and you'll see this a lot in all kinds of European weaving, but there was this particular Russian technique called Brano, B-R-A-N-O-E, And that was what really first got me interested in all of this, especially their white warps and wefts with a red pattern. That was what really captivated me in the first place and got me experimenting with this all those years ago. I did actually make a playlist just the other day that is a Christmas specific playlist that has all my Christmas themed tutorials in it. So I'll link to that down below, but I'll also link to my brand new pickup playlist, which also includes all of these kind of projects. I've got quite a few of them, like reindeer, snowman, gift boxes, all those kind of things, little pictorial tutorials, and they're really sweet. So check those playlists out below as well if you're interested. Okay, now I really need to stop talking and start showing you how we're going to make these trees. Now I've figured out with the number of war pens that I've got that I can even them out and weave 6 Christmas trees across and have some border at the edges. It's fairly important to have a little bit of space around your designs when you're doing this kind of pickup, because you don't want these long floats kind of running off the edges and they're just gonna look like trees that are collapsing or something. So it's really nice to have that negative space around it as well. And if you use a nice color like this blue, along with the other striking colors that I've used, it looks very, very Christmassy and very colorful. I'm going to start by bringing in my pickup stick. My heddle's in neutral, so all the pickup that we're doing for this will be heddle in neutral, and none of the pickup is behind the heddle. It's all at the front. And I'm going to count off 12 threads. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Okay, and they're all going to sit on top of my pickup stick. So I've effectively just taken my stick underneath those. Then I want to go over the next 3 threads with my pickup stick. So I'm going to count them off. 1, 2, 3. And then I will dive my pickup stick back down again. So I've picked up, so I've gone over those 3 threads. Now, if you imagine the path of your thread, the pickup stick is traveling the path that our thread is going to travel in just a moment. So by going over those 3 threads, when my thread travels through there, it's going to be showing in that gap. And that's how we start to build up our design. Now I need to count 13 threads. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13. The reason that there are 13 threads this time is because our border threads are usually a different amount to the threads in between our designs, in case you're wondering about that. So again, my stick's traveling underneath those 13 threads, and then I'm going to go over 1, 2, 3 threads once more. So now I've got 2 places where my design is going to start showing. And I want to keep doing that and going across the entire piece. So I'm going to count another 13. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13. Bring my pickup stick up, and then I'm going to go over 3 threads. Again, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13. Bring it up, go over the next 3, and carry on. All of these numbers and instructions will be written in that PDF on my blog that I was just talking about before. So there's a fair amount of counting when you're doing this kind of pickup, but if you're doing a fairly simple design like the trees that we're doing today, you'll find that there's a lot of repetition and there's a bit of intuitive weaving with it too. You'll see what I mean as we go along. Okay, and that's my last lot. I know that because I'm so close to the border, and I want to have a similar amount on this border that I do on this border. So that is my design ready to pick up. So I can pop that pickup stick on its edge so that it creates a shed for me to weave through, and I'm bringing in my red yarn. So when you see the design, we're weaving from the bottom up. starting with the red, the bottom of the red pot. And I've just cut a little ball and just basically wound it really quickly around my fingers. I like to work like that when I'm doing this kind of weaving just because it's so fast and easy. And then we're just going to leave a tail and drop that yarn down. I'm going to drop it just on my lap underneath. You could bring it up, but I just prefer to have everything underneath. And that's all we need the pickup stick for at the moment. I can beat that into place. Then I need to bring in my weft yarn. I'm in the up shed with my weft yarn. And so I'm just going to do one pick of plain weave. And that's another rule of this type of weaving, is one pick of plain weave for every pattern row. That's what makes the fabric hold together, because on its own, these little pattern pieces, they're not going to make a fabric that is stable. So I put my heddle back into neutral because I need to do my next row of pickup. My next row of pickup is very easy. It's exactly the same as the first row. So all I have to do is bring my stick back in and focus on focus on the parts of the warp the red are covering. There'll be 3 threads and I can just go over them quite quickly with my pickup stick. I don't need to do all of that recounting this time, as long as I'm confident that that the threads that I'm going over are completely lined up with the first ones that I did. Okay, quick and easy. Very nice. And I'm going to grab my red weft from underneath and take that through. Now, when I'm taking it through, I'm not going around this edge. If I did that, then I would have some red showing up at the side here. I don't want that. I only want the red in the placement, in the parts where I'm placing it. So the red only travels from here to here at each time. It doesn't go beyond that. Again, I can take my stick out and beat, and then I'm in the down shed with my plain weave. Back into neutral, ready for the next row of pickup. Now this time we're going to count in 11. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. Then my pickup stick can come to the top again, and I want to go over, instead of 3 this time, I want to go over 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I want to count off 11 again. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. And I want to go over 5. So 2, 4, and 5, and continue that pattern across. Now before, when I was talking about a more intuitive weaving, this is where that sort of comes into play. And what I mean is that I could actually do this section without having to count all of these individual threads. Why? Because I know that last time each section of warp that I went over was 3 threads. This time I know that it's 5 threads. 5 is 2 more than 3, so I know that I'm going to need, for this particular design, because I know the design already, I'm going to need 1 extra warp thread either side of the 3 that I've already done. So using this next lot of 3 here, I can come over and go, okay, this is the original lot of 3. I know that I'm going to need 1 extra thread over this side, done, and 1 extra thread over this side, done. I can keep going along doing the same thing without having to count. Now, if you find that you really need to do the counting, that you don't feel confident enough to sort of eyeball it and do it intuitively, that's not a problem at all. That's why I'm providing all the instructions with all of the numbers for you in case you need that. But if you feel that this intuitive way is a natural way for you to go, then give it a try, because it's pretty fast. Okay, so plain weave. And back into neutral. So this time we're going to count in 10. Let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. That's where I can come up with my stick, and I'm going to go over 7 threads this time. 2, 4, 6, 7. And again, if you have a look at our last pattern pick that was 5, 7 is 2 more than 5, and because the shape of the pots is going up and out, I can do the exact same thing again. I can come to the next part of 5 and I can go, okay, I'm going to need 1 extra on that side, and I'm going to need 1 extra on that side. And of course you can always double check by counting. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, just to make sure that you've got the right amount. 2, 4, 6, 7. Yeah, so just counting off 7 each time. And then I'll bring my red through once more, remembering I don't go around the edges of the warp, and I'm only traveling between those 2 points. Give that a beat, and then I will do my plain weave, which is the down shed for me. Sometimes, especially if you're using a kind of lofty wool or something like that, sometimes your pattern picks will sit up a little bit. Usually the following plain weave pick will sort that out by kind of smushing that down. Let's have a look. So it works quite well. But if you notice that, say on your last pattern pick, that it's sitting up, it's a bit raised, you can always just give that a light little tug just to tension it that little bit extra more if you want to. So that's the 4 pattern rows that we need for the pot. I can then, because I don't need that red anymore, I'm just going to leave a tail so that I can needle that, weave that into the back later on, and just cut that off so that I can introduce my next color. Now for the trunk, you want to use a brown, obviously. I could not for the life of me find a suitable brown in my entire studio, which doesn't surprise me at all because I'm just really not a brown person. I just never really use browns in my weaving, but I've got this sort of mushroom color, so that will have to do for me. Now what I'm doing here is, again, I can do the intuitive weaving because I need a trunk in the middle of each pot. Now if you can look at the pot and see which is the middle thread and just pick that out and then put the stick over it and do that for each one, because it's quite easy to see which one is the middle. But if you find that you're not able to do that, then just follow the written instructions and do the counting, and that way you can have the assurance that you'll be right. Okay, so my mushroom trunks, I'll bring that through, and again I'm not taking that color from edge to edge. It's only from here to here where I've started going over the warp threads. Now I'm leaving a tail for needle weaving in later on. And I'm going to repeat this 3 times. So follow with my plain weave. And then into neutral again. And then I bring in my stick, and again, each middle thread of the pot. So just above where we did the last pick for the trunk. And I don't want my weft yarn getting tangled with my pattern weft. Okay. And then down for my plain weave, and then I do one more row of the brown, what's supposed to be brown. The crazy thing is, I think it was a shawl, or it might have been a baby wrap, somewhere on the internet the other day, maybe on Pinterest or somewhere like that. And it just struck me straight away as really, really stunning. The colors were really wonderful. And guess what the base color was? It was brown. And I always say that I don't like brown and I don't use brown in my weaving. It just goes to show I probably need to branch out. I do get really stuck with my favorite colors. But the thing is, the brown in that piece was combined with some of my favorite colors. It was with some really beautiful greens, really beautiful purples. And so the right combination of colors can just make a piece. So I still have a lot to learn about colors too. All right, so we've got our trunks. Good. Back into neutral. So now we're going to move on to the bottom branches of the tree. We're going to count in 8 threads. 2, 4, 6, 8. And then we're going to go over 11 threads. So this is the very bottom row of the tree. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. Now in between the branches of the trees, we're going to count 5 threads. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 before I come up again, and then I want to do another 11. And then another 5. And another 11. And then 5 and 11. Five, 11, 2, 4, 5, and last lot of 11. Now I had the perfect green for the Christmas tree foliage, but I only had it in a fingering weight. And so what I've done is I've doubled up my yarn. All I did was I just quickly wound off 2 balls of the yarn onto my fingers, and then I combined those 2 balls in 1 ball to make it easier. So you can totally do that too if you have a color that you particularly want to use. 2 strands, they end up looking like 1 strand anyway. Can't really tell. Okay, there's our first lot of tree foliage, and then we'll follow that up with some plain weave. I'll pop that green yarn down underneath so I don't get it tangled up. And then back into neutral. We're going to do 9 threads. Then we're going to go over 9 threads. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. And then in between we want to do 7 threads. So 2, 4, 6, 7. And then we're going over 9 again. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. And then 7 again. So we repeat that pattern all over again. And once again, we can, if you prefer, do the intuitive method where you are going in 1 thread, not out this time, but inwards. So you see where the last green thread ended, we're going to go in 1 thread and then end one thread before the end of the last one, so that we're tapering in our trees. Okay, so I can grab my green yarn again, take that through, take my stick out, beat, and then follow that up with plain weave in the upshed. And remember what I said, you can always do a little bit of gentle extra tensioning on your pattern weft if you need to. This time we'll be coming in 10 threads at the edge. And instead of going over 9 threads this time, we will be going over 7. And then we'll have 9 threads in between. And then over 7, and then 9 in between, over 7. Again, we're tapering inward so that our trees are tapering up towards the top, getting thinner as they go. Okay, grab my green weft and take that through. Beat, and then I've got a downshed for my blue. Back into neutral. Then we'll be coming in 11 threads at the edge, and we'll be going over 5 threads this time. Now in between we'll have 11 threads, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, and then over 5 threads. 11 threads on top and 5 threads under. 11 and 5. And the green pattern weft goes through. And then we follow that up with a plain weave in the upshed. Then we've got just 2 more rows of the actual foliage to go. Back into neutral. This time we count in 12. And we're going over just 3 threads in the middle of the tree. Then we'll be counting 13 threads on top, and then going over the 3 threads in the middle of the tree. So if you can see those 3 threads and just grab them and pop them down. Otherwise, you can follow the instructions for counting. And don't worry, whatever method you end up doing, whether it's counting every single thread, that's absolutely fine. We don't all learn in the same way. And that's why I talk about different methods. And really, who cares if it takes you a little bit longer if you get the same results? I don't care. You're the only one who knows. All right, our down shed now, and that just leaves one more row for the actual green. And it's a really simple one because we're only doing one thread on top of each tree. That's to give the point. So again, follow the counting instructions if you need to. If you don't need to, just grab the middle thread from the top of the tree. It's all coming to a point. You can think of it as a triangle, and this is the top of the triangle. Beat and plain weave in the up shed. Now we'll do an extra row of plain weave after this last one, so I'll also go in the down shed, and then we're going to finish off with a star. So you can't have a Christmas tree without a star on top. So Heddle goes back into the middle, and all we're going to do is pick up that very same thread that we did in the last pattern row. So that was the top of the tree. We also want our star to be at the top and in the center of the tree. Okay, so again, I've only got a thin yellow, so I'm going to double it up. And I only need to do one row for my stars, so I'm just going to double that over and make it about that long, just so I've got enough on either side to needle weave in at the back. And take that one through. Doesn't really want to hold the shed because it's only holding one thread at certain intervals at the bottom, and the pickup stick doesn't really like that, but that's okay, we can get it in there. And beat, and then finish up with some plain weave on top. So let's see, I think I did 4 or 5 rows of plain weave at the beginning before I put in my white pick. So that's 2, 3. Sometimes I just like to eyeball it and see if it looks equal with the other part that I've done, and then decide where to put the border in. So that's 4 picks, and yes, I think that's enough. So I'm going to grab some white, and this white is quite a bit thicker. This is more like an iron weight white, but any white would do. And I'm just going to go into my next plain weave shed, which is the up shed for me. Take that single weft through and beat. So we don't actually pick up for that one, we make it part of our shed. And then I can tuck in the edges. I just tuck them in 3 warp threads deep because I don't want them to show up too much at the edges. And it is a thick yarn. Okay, and then I can weave some more blue plain weave on top of that to incorporate it in. Up. So this is my 4th pick of plain weave. If I want to make it matching with the others, as far as how many picks of plain weave I have between each row of white, then I would leave it there. And if I was going to weave another row of trees, I would start weaving my first row of red from the bottom. Now I did mention something about decorating our tree, so let's have a look at what we can do with that. You know what I thought would be perfect for decorating? Would be like little glittery beads, very small beads that could just kind of nestle. You could sew some thread through the back, through the bead at the front, and then back down through the work, and the bead would just nestle wherever you wanted it to. But unfortunately my bead collection is almost non-existent. So then my next idea was some sparkly embroidery thread. I thought that would be wonderful. I could make little baubles of glittery, sparkly embroidery thread. So I went to my embroidery thread and guess what? No sparkly thread. So then I had a look at my weaving yarns and I found some gold tencel. So that's what I'm going to use. I've got 8/2 gold tencel and I've got 3 strands of it. I'm going to give that a try. So I've just threaded up through my tapestry needle. I've made a knot at the bottom, quite a big knot, so that it's not going to pull through the work from the back. And I'm just going to randomly have a go at bringing the needle through and making some little baubles. Now, I'm thinking of doing like a French knot type situation, but just with one wrap, because once you get 3 strands of this, it is actually kind of thick. So just one wrap, and then I'll take that back down. No idea if this is going to work out, but I've often done French knots on my weaving for my little pictures and it does work out. So okay, well that's kind of cute. I could do another one up here. Again, just one wrap, take it back down. And maybe another one down here, maybe. Okay, well that's not too bad. They're a little bit large, so what I'm going to do is just cut that off at the back. I'm going to try removing one strand so that the next ones are a little bit thinner, and just see if I can make those baubles a little bit smaller. So I'll do my knot again. Okay, I'll go to the next tree and again just come up somewhere random and then do a single wrap and see whether that comes out any smaller. Yeah, that's a little bit more petite, so it's probably more of what I'm going for. So if you wanted to put some baubles on, as I suggested, I think the beads would be really nice, but you could also use some little coloured bits of yarn, a little bit of waste yarn, anything really, if it was in a colour that you liked or you thought would look nice. Yeah, I do like that size a bit more. Okay, good. Well, I'm going to keep going on this bottom row of trees to decorate them with the gold. And I hope that your trees turn out really well and maybe they will become somehow a feature of your home this Christmas and maybe a bit of a talking point too. Don't forget to check out the PDF on my blog and get all of that good information you're after. And I really hope that you enjoyed this project. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share this project, because I'm thinking a few people are going to be wanting to do this ahead of Christmas time. And it's a really fun, not too difficult, nice project to be doing at this time of year. So I'm just going to continue across with my trees, and I'll show you the finished result right at the end of the video. But that's it for me for now, my friends. Until next time, happy weaving and goodbye from Evil Santa.